Anyway, this is another one. I know last week I'd mentioned to the group that I'm just studying out things that I've read it before. It didn't make sense to me. So I just went, okay, well, I'll just keep going.
Mm.
This is one of those characters. And I know I sent the message out to you guys about David's first wife, Michal. I think it's people pronounce her name differently. So I figured somebody would at least know a little bit of her background. Anybody know who she is? Anything on her background?
Yes.
Talk
Okay.
to me.
Man, okay. So let me rein in my excitement first. I'm losing words now. Um, so she her story reminds me almost of how Laban put a fast one on uh what was his name? Jacob, right? Yes, because King Saul is so enamored by David, by David the fighter. He's like, wow, if you since you're going out there and winning all these battles, if you bring me this much, if you bring in more success, I will give you my first daughter, Merab, right? So David is like, whoa, who am I? So then, so then Saul says, so then the time comes, David performs that, and Saul gives Merab away to somebody else.
Yes.
So then, but Michal loves David.
Mm-hmm.
And Saul hears of it. And then he goes, oh, okay, she'll be the snare. Like, so it's like, do you even love your daughters? So this is the thing, like, this is an unloved young lady, right? By her father, who is taken as almost like a ruse for David. Kind of almost like, then you see a little bit of tendencies of Delilah, how Delilah was to Samson as a lure also. And but she's so like, I like her bravery. I like that she loved David. She becomes his wife. She's a princess, so of course she has her little tendencies too, of, hey, so she has also, because she loves him so much, she also has jealousy in her, because you see it come out later on. But yes, so she's the second daughter of Saul. She's a princess. She's feisty, she's loving, and she's not bending to the whims of her father, because you see that she stands up to her father as we go on. So yes, she's in a level with Jezebel and Delilah, like in that misunderstood, but yet so fantastic.
Okay. I love when people get excited about the word of God. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, Maureen.
So my screen is on slag, so I'm sorry guys if it's
okay.
What I'll do is it's okay. Okay, so my take on Michal, or however you want to say it, I've always was taught it was Michal, but she was a princess, Saul's daughter, and I think that she had that star love for David. Like, David's this great, big, wonderful guy. He's a hero. This is the man I want. He's cute. She's infatuated with him. She's infatuated with him. I don't believe Saul thought that David could kill 100 Philistines for any bride price. I think that was him just being Saul, saying, whatever, see if you could do it, not expecting him to do it.
He wanted him to die.
Yes, he did. He wanted him to die. Absolutely. I also think that Michal, I don't believe that she had true love for David. I think her love was more of a superficial, I'm marrying somebody famous, or I love somebody famous. I don't think she had the love that you need in a marriage. I think she found it later and was heartbroken when it was taken from her. Yeah.
Okay.
I do think she was a princess, and I do think that um, in her lifetime, her heart was broken, and I think she learned to resent David.
Mm. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is how can we start in one place and end someplace else?
Mm.
And it happens in all of our lives. I want you to think, not necessarily you, but, you think about, I don't know, baptisms that you've been at, and they've been so incredible. And then, boom, they're gone. And you go, what happened? How do we go from, whoa, so much in love, to I despise? And that's really kind of the story of Michal. We'll just call it that to keep it simple. That's the story. So I want us to kind of look at first the bookends, where she started, where she ended, and then we're going to go in search of the in between, because there's always an in between. Life is rarely just a nice, smooth, straight line from A to Z. There's stuff that happens in between that makes us who we are. Okay. So for those who don't know her, let's look at where she started, where she ended. So over in First Samuel 18, we're going to start in just for now, verse 20. I just want to see where she started, and a number of you have already touched upon it. So First Samuel chapter 18, verse 20. Verse 20. Now Saul's daughter Michal was in love with David. And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. So this is where this story begins. It talks about her being in love with David. And we can almost feel it, whether it's just an infatuation, like Maureen said, or she was deeply in love with him. I mean, he was a hero. They all loved him. All the people loved him. So I'm sure there was some starstruck, but whatever it was, when she saw David, oh, her heart melted, right?
Yes.
Now look down in verse 26, same chapter, verse 26. And when the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become what?
King's son-in-law.
The
Son-in-law.
king's son-in-law. So I want us to see they're kind of starting in different places. It says she was in love with David. And it's saying he's in love with becoming the son-in-law of the king.
Yeah.
So two different places. So women, those of us who are married, you think about, if you are, oh, I love Kurt, that's why I want to marry him. If he says, no, I want to marry Linda because her family is wealthy, that's a whole different something, right?
Way. Yeah.
So even you got these two people that are coming in from two different angles, and we're going to see what happens to them in their life story. But before we go there, I want us to see how she ends, which is going to be over in 2 Samuel.
Okay.
This is usually what people talk about, those who do know her. Verse 16, 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 16.
Okay.
Linda, can you read that one, please?
Yes, I'm doing a New Living Translation. 2 Samuel 6,
6:16,
16. Okay. How far should I go?
just 16.
Okay. But as the ark of the Lord entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window. When she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she was filled with contempt for him.
All right.
Wow.
Or some scripture says she despised him in her heart.
Ooh.
So we just went from she loved David
David
to she was filled with contempt, or she despised him. What kinds of things happens to us that can make us go from love to despise? Whether it's anything. I know before we got started, we were talking about work. We can get a job. We can get a job and we can love it, and now I despise it. Yeah, Maureen.
So me personally, in my own relationship, my first husband, I loved him until I grew up. and then I started to despise his ways. So
Yeah.
I began to despise him because of his ways. His ways were no longer, I couldn't whitewash his ways. I couldn't make his ways nice. I couldn't do anything about his ways. I couldn't I could no longer justify his ways.
Mm,
Yep.
yes. Okay. Thank you, Margie.
Husbands that are unfaithful.
Mm.
Two,
Exactly it.
horribly, I mean, blatantly unfaithful, just not
Yes.
even trying to
No.
hide, no, not making any effort to sneak up, just blatantly and just doing it.
Right in the
And
front. Mhm.
yeah, and I was just like, how do you say you love somebody and do that to somebody?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It just makes no sense. There's no rationale in what you were doing or how you were doing it. And it was just horrible.
Yeah.
And it does, yeah, I definitely went from love to despise. Whew.
Mm.
Okay.
Quickly.
Brenda.
I think when I first meet people and I'm learning more about them, getting to know them, and then my expectations of their character starts to actually not really be true. So as their character unfolds, I'm like, oh my gosh,
Mm,
I can't even be seen with you. So then I despise them.
okay. So discouragement based on what you see. Linda.
This is going to be different than what everybody else is going, but I think we can get to that place when we're not actually happy with ourselves. So
Mhm.
when life isn't going the way we want it, our perspective changes and how we see them, because they're not
Mhm.
exactly because if they were just a different way, then we'd be happier. So
Mhm.
that's kind of how I see it. Her life's not going well, so she's going to put it on somebody like David.
Right. Okay. Very
I can-
good. Christy.
A couple of things come to mind. I don't know if it's despise, but not feeling appreciated by someone or taken advantage of from
Mhm.
someone when you know, that can it just causes that type of angry, frustrated, disappointed feeling, I guess.
Right.
And then what was the other thought? When kind of about the character, when maybe there are people that just flat out are mean and hateful to other people. I think that affects me a lot, like, you know, racism, prejudice, things like that,
Right.
bias, and just kind of like you said, blatant about it. You know, when I'm seeing things like that, you know, a Southern Baptist preacher and uses bad words, you know, about
Yeah.
people, you know,
Mm.
and I'm like that. I actually felt that despise feeling when I saw that, you know,
Mhm.
when I was younger,
Right.
and
Mm.
really just angry. And then I was like, well, I'm supposed to be loving to all people too, you know. So then I was thinking about that, but it really did bring out that feeling in me.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you, guys. I think what we're seeing is that we're all capable of being Michal. We
Mhm.
can love deeply and we can despise equally in the same breath, with the same person, because stuff happens in
Mhm.
between.
Yep.
And I know we've been doing this for weeks now, as we study out characters in the scripture, we've got to be careful not to sum people up so quickly.
Mhm.
She definitely, I mean, there's some bad things in her character, but if we take the time to stop and look at all of the stuff in between, we see ourselves in her,
Mhm.
as opposed to, oh, bad character, stay away. And we do that, not we as in you guys and myself personally, but just as a whole, as Christians, we sum people up. Oh, Jezebel, ooh, oh, so-and-so, ooh. And I always say God doesn't waste his time putting people in the
Mhm.
picture for no reason. You know, she's not just here because she was David's wife. There's so much more to her, but we have to take the time to dig to find it.
Mhm.
All right. So tonight we're looking at all of her in between.
Mhm.
All right. So back to Samuel, 1 Samuel. Now we're going to do a little bit of reading. 1 Samuel chapter 19.
Okay.
Let me get there. First Samuel chapter 19, if I can get 11 through 17. Christy, can you read that? Thank you.
Yep. 11 through 17.
Yes, please.
Saul sent men to David's house to watch it and to kill him in the morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't run for your life tonight, tomorrow you'll be killed. So Michal let David down through a window and he fled and escaped. Then Michal took an idol and laid it on the bed, covering it with a garment and putting some goat's hair at the head. When Saul sent the men to capture David, Michal said, he is ill. Then Saul sent the men back to see David and told them, bring him up to me in his bed so that I may kill him. But when the men entered, there was the idol in the bed, and at the head was some goat's hair. 17 too?
Yes, please.
Saul said to Michal, why did you deceive me like this and send my enemy away so that he escaped? Michal told him, he said to me, let me get away. Why should I kill you?
Okay, let's talk about her a little bit. This is at the beginning of their marriage. Remember, we just finished seeing how much in love. What do we see? What is she doing? Why is she doing it? Anything stand out for you? Margie.
She's protecting him. She's looking out for him because he's her husband. He's her better half. So she makes ways to protect him and make sure that he's not killed. So obviously she's still in love with David, at least at this point.
Okay. All right, good. As a wife, we all know what it is to protect our spouses, right? Brenda.
She knows her father is evil. And so but yet she also knows how to mastermind him. And in her protection, she had oh my goodness, okay. I see Rahab in here too.
Yes.
Goodness gracious, she's great. So she's in her love and desire to make sure that David is protected. She also understands David's worth, because I think there's something about her. She sees beyond just the David who is the fighter. It's almost like she and her brother Jonathan speak, and they both believe that David is destined for something bigger than just. So that's why she has to protect him and against her father's wishes.
Right. Oh, good. Anybody else? Anything else that we see?
I think she wanted to keep her standing as well, and as far as, I don't think at this point David was king yet, or anointed king.
No, he isn't.
Was he anointed? Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet. But so that would mean Jonathan's brother. Jonathan's not the oldest, is he?
He is the son, so he would become the prince.
He would be
There's
next
another brother, isn't there?
No.
There another brother?
No,
He's younger.
Yeah, there was
Younger than,
another brother. Right, but Jonathan would have been
he's
next.
younger. Okay, so probably she just wanted to hold her position in court, right? Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it though.
I agree that she but he's no lowly shepherd person at this point. He's a great hero, and she probably wanted to keep this person because it reflected on her as well. I think, me personally, I think she's manipulative, so that's why.
That's what I was going to say.
So
She's being manipulative.
Manipulation and her in my opinion, and her standing in this kingdom, in this household.
But what makes you think she's manipulative from this particular reading? Like, if we were just to look at this, what makes
she manipulates her father real well. She creates a story and she didn't tell him the truth. She manipulated. She manipulated him.
Yep. I'm with you, Maureen. 100%.
Yeah, because it doesn't say that David said he was going to kill her.
Right.
No, but she has to save her hind too. Remember, remember, she's lost her protector. Like, David is the person. Once you get married in that culture, your husband is your sole protector, right? So now her sole protector is being hunted down to be killed, right? So he is gone. So now she has to also, yes, I understand, I see the manipulation, but it's not necessary. It's almost like she needs to self-preservation. If he is gone, who's going to watch over her? Obviously, she needs to be able to go back home to her father. So how is she
Right.
going to go back to under the protection of her father as a young woman of Hebrew culture?
Right.
He is going to get
Oh.
into the better graces of her father.
Yeah.
But she
I
would
think
he
both-
would have brought her back home to marry her off to somebody else as a
Else,
prince.
that's right. Exactly.
And that will happen. But if she said, I let him go, do you see
Oh,
how
I get what you're
that?
saying. Yeah. She was in love with him because she could have went back home with her dad because he would have taken her back into his household.
Right.
So at this point, I see what you're saying. She was still
Right.
in love with him. She still hasn't
Yes.
reached the point of being devious and manipulative
There
like
you
her dad.
go.
That's what I was going to say. That takes right back to there. She wants to hold on to David. She's going to do whatever it takes.
Yes.
She doesn't
It's-
want to go back home to daddy yet.
It is a complicated relationship.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a complicated triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to see. She is her father's daughter.
Mhm.
So the manipulation and all the stuff that everybody's saying, it's there. You know, it's just like someone says, "Oh, you remind me of your father," because you know it's in the DNA. But at the same time, there is a real love and a transfer. I appreciate that, Brenda. There a transfer. Once that marriage takes place, she leaves the father and she's now clings to the husband. But yeah, the self-preservation as a woman during that time, you think
Mhm.
about, she is really just being passed. She's a pawn that's been passed from one to the other. So being devious and manipulative is also to protect herself,
Protect yourself. Yeah.
you know? So we're seeing this woman, but I wanted to point out all those, I love all that juicy stuff everybody just talked about. You guys just went for it. But I want us to see in the beginning, their marriage got off to a great start.
Mhm.
She loved him. She warned him. She tried to protect him. You can see that for some reason, she cared
Yeah.
for his well-being. Maureen.
I wanted to say, so I went back and read the passage, but Saul said, "I will give her to him," he thought, "so that she may be a snare to him,
Yes.
Ah, he thought she
so
was
that
gonna-
she may be he knew his daughter,
Yes.
his spoiled bratty daughter very well."
Yes. He knew who she was.
Yeah.
He was using her to be a snare, but he also knew the character of who she was. So he's thinking, she will help me bring him down.
Mhm.
The tricky part is she was in love with him. So
Yeah.
now we're going to get into all the other in-between stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, so their marriage got off to a good start, but then it was interrupted. So we're going to pick it up. There's some Old Testament names in here. So somebody who doesn't mind those big crazy words. Maureen, you tend to do well with those. If you can pick it up where we left off in verse 18 and
Okay.
take it all the way
When-
to the end.
Okay. So when David had fled and made his escape, he went to Samuel at Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. Then he and Samuel went to Naioth and stayed there. Word came to Saul, "David is in Naioth at Ramah." So he sent men to capture him. But when they saw a group of prophets prophesying with Samuel standing there as their leader, the Spirit of God came on Saul's men, and they also prophesied. Saul was told about it, and he sent more men, and they prophesied too. Saul sent men a third time, and they also prophesied. Finally, he himself left for Ramah and went to the great cistern at Seku. And he asked, "Where are Samuel and David?" "Over in Naioth at Ramah," they said. So Saul went to Naioth at Ramah, but the Spirit of God came even on him, and he walked along, prophesied until he came to Naioth. He stripped off his garments, and he too prophesied in Samuel's presence. He lay naked all day and all night. This is why people say, "Is Saul also among the prophets?"
Okay.
Wow.
It sounds a little crazy, but obviously he's out to get David. Bottom line.
Mhm.
So he goes out, he's trying to, but the spirit fell upon him. And when they fell upon him, they just laid out, you know. So Saul strips down naked. He's going crazy. His men strips down naked. They go crazy. Everybody's probably going, "Ooh, what's going on?" I bring that out because it's going to come back around a little bit later on. So we'll hold on to that. That's the only reason I had you read all of that, is that it will come back in the text. Let us to see, we won't read all of it because the whole next chapter talks about Jonathan and David. You know, we all know that relationship. But what I want us to know before we go to the next section is that once Michal lets him down that window, lets him escape, she doesn't see him again for 14 years.
That's awful.
14 years.
Wow.
Not only does she not see him, he doesn't call for her, doesn't mention her. He marries again 2 other women. He marries Abigail, who I love. He sneaks to see Jonathan. So you can always look at it. People have said, well, he was on the run from Saul. That's why he didn't see her. But he secretly saw Jonathan. He secretly got married twice. So again, going back to where we started, she loved David, but we never hear David say he loved Michal.
Yeah.
And we start to see it in his actions. Again, I want us to see what pushed this woman from love to despise.
Okay. Okay.
If
Yeah.
we can start to see it, then she becomes more than just a villain in the story. So we're beginning to see, maybe there's some stuff going on that would bring her heart to this place.
Yes, then we're gonna hear it too, because it just hit me what it is.
Yes, right?
Yes, it just after what you said, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh, no wonder she hated him.
Yes.
And
Because when he
it's
does
so
call her,
interesting.
he's not very nice about it.
Yes.
But it's so interesting that you see the work of God in it, that God used Michal to save David, because she doesn't put him down that window. David dies that night.
Yeah.
But such amazing self-sacrifice.
Right.
Yes. I just admire the woman, so let me keep listening.
2 Samuel chapter 6.
Okay.
Now remember, before David tried to bring the Ark of the Covenant back to God's people, what happened that first time around? Anybody remember?
Oh, the two guys died because it was about
Tried
to
to
fall
touch it,
and
right.
they
It
held
almost
on
fall
to
and they
it.
tried to catch it, right.
Right. So this time he's got it, so we're trying it a second time, and this time it's working. So David's excited, that's why he falls out and does his craziness. But we've got to remember what's happening with her in between all of this time. 2 Samuel chapter 3.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So this is after Saul has died. So David has had many opportunities, but he refuses, obviously, to lay a hand on the man of God. So after Saul passes away, Abner is now in charge. In chapter 3, starting in verse 12,
Okay.
who hasn't read? Margie, do you mind if you can read 12 through 16?
Okay. Then Abner sent messengers on his behalf to say to David, "Whose land is it? Make an arrangement with me, and I will help you bring all over to you." "Good," said David. "I will make an agreement with you, but I demand one thing of you. Do not come into my presence unless you bring Michal, daughter of Saul, when you come to see me." Then David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, son of Saul, demanding, "Give me my wife, Michal, whom I betrothed to myself for the price of 100 Philistine foreskins." So Ishbosheth gave orders and had her taken away from her husband, Palatiel, son of Lavish. Her husband, however, went with her, weeping behind her all the way to Bahurim. Then Abner said to him, "Go back home." So he went.
Okay.
Was
Okay.
crazy. So he loved her, but he's running behind her, weeping, man.
All right. Very true. Chris,
Wow.
Christy, I saw your face. What's going on inside? What were you
It's just
thinking?
so sad. He's like, she during this time she got married to someone else to find love, I guess. I mean, I hope, but he definitely loved her, and now, I mean, her husband's following, just grieving. You know, it's just sad. Wow.
I think Saul gave her to this guy, because there's
Yes.
some part we miss where he gave her to this guy, because she still has to be under the watchful eye of a man, and so she had to be married off again.
Right.
But it's interesting that David wants his wife back, but notice what he said: the one I purchased, almost like I
Right.
betrothed myself to. She wasn't betrothed to him, but he betrothed himself to her for 400 foreskin, or whatever
Yeah.
100 foreskin. So to him, the valor of having gone to war and killed these many Philistines makes it like she belongs to me.
Yeah. It's like
It's not that
I
bring
own her
back the
'cause I
love of
paid
my
for her.
life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I paid the price for her, so you can't keep her away
Yes.
from.
Maureen.
Okay, so I think he wanted her back for a different reason. He's using her. She's the daughter of Saul.
Mhm.
While even though David is anointed and going to be king, Saul was king. So for his enemies or any allegiances that he had, having Michal as his wife brought the house of Saul to him.
Yeah.
Made his kingdom or his throne,
Complete.
what's the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry?
It's politically
Complete.
important. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yes. It's a political move. It's political
Right.
power. So
Yeah.
you're right, Brenda, what you're saying. I skipped some things in there, but after Saul had passed away, but before that, he passed his daughter off to Patiel. I can't think of how you pronounce his name, who actually really loved her. But he was able to do that because after a period of time, once the woman has been handed off and their husband no longer shows up, she has been considered abandoned.
Right.
Remember, I said David has not called for her, reached out, wrote a letter, anything for 14 years. She's abandoned. So Saul gives her off. She is no longer of any meaning as far as political power for Saul. So he just passes her to the next person so that he doesn't have to be responsible for. Again, I want us to keep in mind what's going on inside of this woman that went from love to despise. Because when we talk about her, it's almost like we despise her. But if we can humanize her,
she's got every reason to despise him because
if
of all
we
that
can
happened.
humanize her, we see differently.
Or
So-
men too. I mean, I could see her just mounting up this bitterness towards men that are controlling her. I mean,
Yeah.
I know how that can feel of, don't control me, you know, I've been too controlled, you know,
Right.
through those situations, and this, I could see that just adding to, yeah, that's another man. There's another one taking me out of this relationship. There's another one, you know.
Yeah.
So,
But I want us to also see, as Brenda has been pointing out, God's hand throughout it. Sometimes it's hard to see God's hand because the things that are happening around us are just so horrendous. You're going, oh, where's God in all of this?
yeah.
You know, but he did allow her to be married to a man who did love her. So we don't know how long they were together. So this woman who experienced no real love did have it for a short period of time. And we get that because, like Christy pointed out, it's sad when you read just that short little encounter. You know, they're back to pulling her like a tug of war, back and forth. And this man just walks behind her weeping, you know,
I mean,
Don't
it's a grown man crying in
Yeah.
that day and age. I mean, that's
For quite a way, for quite a ways too.
in front of like soldiers and stuff, you know, I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
wow, you know.
Yes. And
All
then
the
like
way to
Maureen,
Bathroom. It's long.
like Maureen pointed out, at this point, because Saul is dead, now it's a transition. It's a fight for power of the house. Abner is part of the household, but he wasn't he wasn't king. And since Jonathan has also been murdered, so all those who are really direct to the throne are
Mhm.
gone, with the
Mm.
exception of the pawn that's on the table,
Yeah.
Michal.
Yeah.
So David's move of, I purchased her, she
Mhm.
belongs to me. Ugh.
Yeah.
You
Did
think
she
about
really?
how she's feeling. Yes, you purchased me, I belong to you, but it's been 14 years since you've even spoken my name. And now you come calling, now that I'm happy, so again, I want us to see the woman,
Mhm.
not just this minor character that's in scripture.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's keep going. Pick it up. Where do we end? All right. So now you sent him off. Now 2 Samuel chapter 6. Because David has now made good. So we're going to pick it up in verse 12 through 16.
Okay.
12 through 16. Brenda, can you take it?
Sure. 12 through 16.
Mhm.
Now David was told, the Lord has blessed the household of Obed Edom and everything he has because of the ark of God. So David went down and brought up the ark of the Lord of God from the house of Obed Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. When those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, he sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf. David, wearing a linen ephod, danced before the Lord with all his might, while he and the entire house of Israel brought the ark up of the Lord with shouts and sounds of trumpets. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart.
This is where we started. Remember, I said I wanted to
Mhm.
see where she ended, and let's see what's happened. So all that stuff that transpired in between. And now David is praising, he's got the kingdom, everything's underneath him now. So now
Mhm.
he's jumping and he's singing and he's dancing and everybody's praising him and it's all good. But when she
Mhm.
looks out that window, she's not seeing the David everybody else is seeing.
Mhm.
What is she seeing?
I no longer admire you. I know nothing you do.
No,
Nothing.
that's right. Nothing.
Nothing.
It's
You
like,
Yes.
could
I
bring
see-
me flowers
I got
every
nothing.
day. It'll be nothing.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
He
word,
never thanked her for saving his life.
That's another
What's
thing.
that?
he
That's
never
another
thanks her for saving his life, she said.
Very true.
He didn't love
And
her. I mean,
he didn't love her.
he wanted to, and this is my opinion, he was trying, I think in everything, he wanted to be the king's son-in-law, which gives him power. And then when he got her back, he wanted her for power, to increase his power and hold his power.
Mm.
So
Okay. Linda?
When I think about it, David being gone for those 14 years, you think about that period of time, I don't think David was expecting he was even going to ever make it back. That's probably one of the reasons he never communicated with her. And
or he knew her true color.
here's the thing though too, is that when he shows up, she's nothing more than a pawn to him. If he
Yeah.
doesn't have any consideration for her, I could see why she would despise him. It's like,
I do.
you're just using me. Why? I mean, that's it. I mean, I totally get it.
And if she truly was hurt, we all know the best ways to hurt our spouses. Matter of fact, we're probably the ones who can do it the best.
True. True.
True.
And she did it.
True. Brenda?
Okay, so David is king, right?
Yes.
Is he
Yes.
king right now?
Yes,
Yeah,
he
he's
Who's
is.
the
king.
queen? Who
She
is the
is.
queen? But
She
they
is
don't
She
say
is.
she's the, but she's,
Nope.
they don't say she's the queen.
Because she is his first wife. She is the official queen.
Even
So,
more than that, she's
so she's
also
looking, but she's
house.
looking through the window. So there's something about this that just doesn't add up. She's looking through the window. David has obtained many wives. She's been pulled back into this place, but she's not called queen.
Hmm.
Why
I don't
isn't
think
she joining with the throng to rejoice with everyone? Because there were women dancing outside. There were people with, so there's something that's
Quite cohesive,
missing.
not as cohesive,
She's
yeah.
angry.
I don't
She's
think I
angry.
don't think he even called any of his wives queen. I don't
Just
think he
wives and
called it.
concubines. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think at this time. But you have to remember too that probably she felt I look at it like because of what she says, in view of the slave girls and servants, I think she's looking down at that she's higher up.
She is
I'm
a princess. Yeah.
right.
I
think
don't blame
even
her.
I'm the wife of the king, and you're acting like a fool in front of all these other women who are lowlier than me, and how dare you do that? But remember, she also, and it just came to me because this was her husband first loves, maybe for both of them, first time being married, and she knew how to cut him to the quick, and she did. He got mad. He got upset about it.
Yeah. Brenda?
And it's also sad because here's a woman who was used by God to save his life, right? But right now, she's been so hurt, right? Through the years that this is a beautiful moment. The ark of God is being restored to Jerusalem. But she can't even see that part because she's so in pain that she can't see past David and what he's doing. And oh my gosh, what a monumentous thing that's happening to our people as a people. And yes, that's why people are celebrating.
Right.
So it hurt her. She's really hurt.
I think she's
Right.
bitter.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Over the
She's
king.
bitter. That's right. She's bitter.
Yes.
And bitter never makes a situation better. It only makes a situation worse.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But do we
It,
feel this, because sometimes we say bitter and it's just so jarringly blaming, but do we feel how hurtful this is? Like, this is a broken woman. She's so broken.
Yeah.
Her father's dead. Now she's in this house where David is the one who is pretty much providing her the protection, but she's been taken away from the man who actually really loved her. And even though they don't tell us how she felt, she's been at least in a place where she was loved. She's back here. She knows she's a political pawn, and she's in so much pain. I don't even think she has any confidence anymore, because in a marriage, right, isn't your husband supposed to be your confidant? But she doesn't have that. So
Right.
she is broken.
but we have a choice. So we have a choice as we go through pain and bitterness as women, right? We have a choice because it can kill that love that you had originally. Because I've been in, I am in a loving marriage now, but I was in a very unloving, abusive marriage before. And that abuse killed that love of like a marriage love, right?
Yeah.
But if I had given into that and given into the bitterness and how it affected my kids and all of this, right, I wouldn't be to this day be able to see that person as a child of God. He's a man that God made, and to be able to say, Father, forgive him, for he doesn't know what he does, and to really have that heart to step above it, above the bitterness, above the pain, and not let that define me. as a
I
woman.
understand. I'm gonna challenge that because I understand, right? In modern day, right now, we can look at that and we say, yes, we have a choice, right? But remember, this is a woman who is pretty much by herself, like to the point that you can look at a celebration that beautiful. You see the ark of God. The ark of God is passing through, and your pain is that much, right? That all you see is how much your husband has, like you see all you see is the pain of what your husband has done to you. Like you look at people, right? So there's something there that the support network is not there. So if you can't see God, right, at that point, I don't see what choice you have. See, that's
This is
I
some
think she
good
felt like a
stuff.
victim. She thinks she felt like a victim because she had no real power to do anything in her life. She was just
and in
That
that
is
no
culture,
power.
like we have to look
We
at
have
it
to go to
in that
Naomi
culture
and
that
Ruth
day,
and Orpah. We
Okay.
have to
her
go back
time.
to
But when you come to that place where you feel that absolute bitterness, you sit there and literally you are steeped in it. And your anger and your disappointment and your hurt all come into one big ball, and your heart is hurting. You can't see beyond the bitterness and the pain of what you're feeling at that time. And it's really hard to look beyond that to see anything other than how can I give to this person what they've done to me?
Okay.
And you
Pause.
are despising them.
Okay.
You
Pause,
are.
everybody. Maureen's been trying to get something in. Maureen?
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. So yes, you have bitterness. She didn't have children, but she probably lived in a household with kids and being in a very abusive relationship with stepchildren. You are bitter, but you can't let that bitterness show through to that person. You can't. Not especially not with kids. But I want to go back to Ruth, Naomi, and Orpha. Same situation, not same, similar situation where they lose their only support. Ruth goes with Naomi, poor, has no support, to a land. She could have been like Orpha, stayed there. She could have been bitter. That you have a choice. I'm not saying that it's easy. And yes, thank God that in today's time we can get out of mistakes that we've made and we're not put into them. But me personally, I think what she did because she was hurting. She did because she was bitter, and she did it because she knew it would hurt David, and it did hurt David. It very much hurt David because David said, because of what he said, it hurt him, and he was pissed, and she was pissed.
It hurt
They
him
both
because he remember what they always say about David. David was a man after God's own heart. So he loved the celebration, right? So it hurt because his heart was in, I love this celebration and I can't believe you're not there. But he also didn't see that this woman was hurting so
he knows
much.
exactly what he did. He's a very smart man. He knew exactly what he was doing when he went to go get Michal. Are you kidding me? He knew. He's like, I need her. She's my wife. I didn't care about her for 15 years. Okay, but I need her to secure my place politically
As a
in
king.
this house.
David
Yes. So he goes against her. He doesn't care how she feels.
being being a man after God's own heart, he was, but not a perfect man. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone after Bathsheba. I mean, come on, this guy, he was a wreck.
But even in that time, I think of Abigail, right? Abigail had this abusive husband who was a drunkard, who was just, and she still, rather than giving into bitterness or say, yeah, kill him, rather than all of that, she still thought wisely. She still tried to see the good. She saw what David was doing. I mean, she had a choice there of how to handle it. And she, and given Michal, she's been taken care of. I mean, I don't know all the details, if people mistreat her, but she's been treated like a princess all this time. So she's had food and shelter, and she had a man that loved her, for the 14 years or however many years, right? I mean, she's had things that she could, and this is a country that supposedly loves God, right? I mean, worships God. So there's little things she could have said. She had a choice to say, I'm going to be grateful for this. I'm going to be grateful for this. And that's what helps you overcome that bitterness and anger and everything. And
I think we're projecting.
Okay. We all are, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of, in what I want to do, and I want us to project a little bit. I was going to ask us, what is the lesson of her life for us? Let's project in that direction. She's in here for a reason. And she is a hard character to see the good and the bad, but she is filled with good and bad.
Mhm.
So what's the lesson behind her? What do you think God really intends for us to get from this character, but really all of these three characters intertwined? Yes, gets complicated, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the willingness to be forgiving or learning to forgive,
Yeah.
truly forgive, which I have not done yet, but I'm working on it.
Yes.
But to truly forgive, I don't think I'm bitter, but I don't want to. It's hard for me to see that person
Right.
as a child of God. I mean, I know that's true,
Mhm.
but if you were to ask me, do you think he could ever be saved? You're like, no, are you kidding me? No, there's only one God, not two.
Right, Linda.
I think for me, like the lesson would be, just to trust God and his purpose and his ways, because the thing is, we have no control over who people are and what they do. God is the only one that can do that. So we do have to trust God and forgive people and do the best that we can, regardless.
Yeah. What I wrote down is just in my own notes. I went, in our relationship with God, just like with Michal and with David, stuff will happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's stuff that's done to us, and sometimes it's stuff that we've done to others.
Mm.
And that's what we see in the relationship between David and Michal and
Mhm.
Saul. They were doing stuff to each other. Let's say just throwing arrows, shooting arrows. So he would hurt her, she would hurt him. Then, so everybody was going against each other. And with Michal, what we see is, if we don't deal with,
Mm-hmm.
as it's happening, if we don't deal with it, it will corrupt our hearts.
Mhm.
So she went from a heart that loved this man, and
Okay.
then stuff happened, just
Mhm.
as stuff will happen, but because she wasn't dealing with it as it happened, it built up to her looking out that window and
Mhm.
despising what she saw.
Mhm.
But I want us to look at it and see, she's not an exception.
No.
The same is true for us.
I
As
agree.
we're going through our walk with God or our walk with our loved ones, when things happen, and they will,
Mhm.
if we don't deal with it, it will harden our hearts to a point where we look out that window, or wherever we're looking, whatever view, what lens we're looking through, and we despise them. And again, the word despise means to devalue.
Mhm.
How do I
Wow.
devalue my husband or my children or my boss or whomever it is in our lives that gives us grief? And again, she was done wrong, she was done dirty,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but she did a lot of dirt as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard, because David is a man after God's own heart, so it makes it even harder to reconcile. So a lot of times we hear that any story with David in it, we tend to try to clean it up on
Yeah.
David's part,
Because we like David.
because we like David. And in order for it to make sense to us, we have to make him the hero.
Mm.
But I think God's point is, none of us are heroes
Mhm.
without him.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Amen.
We see that David is doing some crazy stuff.
Mhm.
What makes him a man after God's heart was his willingness to make changes every time God called him on it.
Yep.
Mhm.
It wasn't that he didn't do crazy things. It's just when he did, and God called him to the carpet on it, he changed.
Yeah.
Because when you look through this story, you really see glimpses of David and Bathsheba. So you get a chance to see, what did he learn? What didn't he learn? You know, so he was very much a man that was in process.
Mhm.
I had time with Chrissy Watson last week, and I was just full. She was sharing some great stuff, but she shared something along the line of, she said, we have to realize we're all under renovation.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So basically, we're all fixer-uppers. We're all uninhabited.
right.
That's what we're seeing. David is in the process of being fixed up. He's been renovated. And it's not a done deal after this, because he has to go through it again with Bathsheba. And you know what I mean? And she also is in the process of being renovated. We don't know where her story goes. I do want to close it out with how it ends, but we have to look at ourselves and understand none of us are there. We're all her.
That's right.
As easy as it can be to look at her and go, I just can't believe she would do this, that, and the. We do this. You know, we're guilty as well.
Oh yeah.
We can all look at our lives and go, there, but by the grace of God.
Yep.
Every single one of us. I didn't point it out, but I want us to see how many times in the course of her story, it bounces from calling her David's wife. Whenever we saw the love between the two, it would call her Michal, David's wife. Every time we saw the bitterness, it says the daughter of Saul.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
oh wow.
Because we all, and it made me think back
Wow.
to David. Names mean something in scripture. I mean, you think about Peter, and Jesus renamed him, but whenever he was being bullheaded or crazy, he would call him by his old name,
Simon Peter.
just as a reminder.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I think each and every one of us, we need to look and go, what would my reminder name be? Because
That would be your full name, as your mother would call you.
Yeah. Yes.
I think
Your
it's
government name on your birth certificate.
it's God's way of reminding us of what we've come from.
Yeah.
For those of you who did the Bathsheba study with me, remember when we get to the lineage of Jesus,
Mhm.
and it says Bathsheba, who was Uriah's wife. God has a way of reminding us of who we are,
Mhm.
what we've come from.
Yes.
I want us to look at the last part of this so we can.
Okay.
This has been great discussion tonight, ladies.
Yeah.
All right, so we're still in 2 Samuel chapter 6.
Okay.
And Maureen, if you can finish us off, we're going to take 20 through 23.
Okay.
When David returned home to bless his household, Michal, daughter of Saul, came out to meet him and said, "How the king of Israel has distinguished himself today, going around half naked in full view of the slave girls of his servants, as any vulgar fellow would."
Wow.
David said to Michal, "It was before the Lord who chose me rather than your father or anyone from his house when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people Israel. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will even become more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But these slave girls you spoke of, I will be held in honor." And Michal, daughter of Saul, had no children to the day of her death.
Wow.
Oh.
Wow.
Yikes. So you hear they're throwing arrows at each other. You can hear
Oh
it.
yeah.
Ugh, ugh, ugh.
Yeah.
And then that last line is the zinger. And I've heard so many people share that she was cursed by God.
No, he didn't sleep with her. That's the
I
thing.
understand.
Yeah.
Right.
He chose not to
Yeah, I
sleep
don't
with
think
her
he.
anymore.
Yeah, I think he never slept with her.
Right.
That's
So
why she
no,
never had.
no effect, no
Honestly, Brenda, I don't think
affection.
he ever
Oh,
did up to
that's
that. I don't
tragic.
even think when he brought her back, he did. I think she was only there as a pawn.
Yeah.
I just don't think he cared for her.
Right. But again, God's lesson. We're always looking for God's lesson, because any story, we can all start projecting into it. And there's 6 women on the screen. We'll have 6 different projections, you know.
Yes.
But when we look for, okay, God, but what's the lesson? What are you showing us? What happens is, like you said, whether it's he didn't sleep with her, some people say God cursed her, which is not true, because it says to Saul earlier, God says that his household would be cut off. So
Yeah.
that was something that was prophesied before that. But the point of it, I believe, is because they were never intimate again, no fruit
Ever.
Mhm.
ever came out of that. There will never be fruit that comes out of our bitterness,
Yeah.
contentious, despised hearts.
Yeah.
Do you think he did it on purpose because he didn't want to have any rivals for his kids?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't think that was, again, possibly, but I don't think that was the intent. I think the lesson for us is God is saying that when we are judgmental and we are critical, then we are not producing fruit in
Right.
keeping with what he wants from us. So
Amen.
basically, we cut off our own line with God because her heart was never cleaned out.
So
She
he
had
could-
all the reasons. She was justified for all of what happened. But God is saying, but that is no excuse. I
Wow.
still need you to clean out your heart, remain soft-hearted. Otherwise, no fruit will ever come from you.
I can get a whole sermon out of just that right there. just that whole idea. Wow.
Right.
That's so deep.
And I believe, for me, as I said, I've been digging into ones that haven't made sense in the past. This one all of a sudden made sense. I was like, oh, okay. Here's a woman who has been justified by all of what's happened, but God is saying that justification does not work for me.
Yeah.
So BJ can't give God a litany of a list. Well, this happened and so-and-so. And he's like, no.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
difference between her and David was at least willing to hear God
Mhm.
and make changes.
Change. Amen.
We hear that she was Saul's daughter again, right at
Yeah.
the end, and you could hear it in everything she said, Saul's daughter.
Yeah.
We've got to remain God's daughters when we speak, when we act, when we interact with people. We can't bounce back to whomever our government name, as Maurice said.
Yeah.
We can't revert back to who we used to be because God has made us someone different now. He had made her, he was in the process of making her someone different, but she kept reverting back to who she used to be. And she never, ever received the full blessing, the fruit in her life that she could have received.
Mm.
Amen.
Wow.
That's
I
why I
know,
love
wow.
life these days.
I'm still hiding for Michal. I'm like until Michal all the way. I'm still
No,
hiding for her.
I am a cow.
We have to trust that God will intercede.
All the
He
time.
always does. It's when we get in the way that we mess
Look
up
at you.
God's plan, and it happens time and time again. Just because it doesn't happen right in this moment, that's
But
when
it
we
happens.
take matters into our own hands. And he said, if you just leave it to me. I think about Joseph, his brothers. It came back on them. It
Yeah,
didn't
sure
take
did.
Joseph to do something. God had it. He took care of it. David's thing, he's a man after God's own heart, but his curse, I don't want to call it a curse, it's probably not the right term, but
His weakness.
his weakness was that he was never a great leader of his own household, his own family.
Yeah.
Because over in Deuteronomy 17, God says that if I give you a king, the king is to be the husband of but one wife. David crossed that many times over.
Yeah.
So because of that, he never ruled over his own family. So the consequences, God
And there was a lot of consequences.
God always deals with whatever needs to be dealt with. He doesn't need us to do it. Michal was trying to deal with it herself.
Yeah.
The thing is, what I'm still stamped on is that from the beginning, Michal doesn't have the training, the support system. Because you see, like David is in a desert or whatever. He has the training. He's trained. He's learned who his rock is, right? You don't see that with Michal. So she's facing all these problems, but there's no support system. So I'm still torn. So that's why I'm sitting here going, okay, God, are you serious? Really? Like I understand all the lessons we've learned, but there's something where I go, Michal didn't get a fair shake, a fair, yeah, she doesn't have a
Because it's
support
not
system.
fair. Nothing is fair, and that's what
No,
love
I understand, but
But again,
get it,
she was
Brenda.
probably,
Like
you have to think she had to have been very young as
No,
well.
but
and
Brenda's
very
saying is that
inexperienced.
everybody else got an opportunity to make a choice.
Yes.
Pretty much a lot of everyone else had the opportunity to make the choice. Mikhail had no opportunity in anything that she did to make a choice. But her choice wasn't in her circumstance. Her choice was in her heart.
Yeah.
So
And
I
it's
was going to
not
say
fair,
she could have
but
chosen
she
a different way.
but
but
she
she
was
already
raised in
felt
a
like
Hebrew.
even but
She was
she already
raised in a
felt like
Hebrew
even the one who could like okay, if you already feel like even the superpower that could stand up for you has already betrayed you because you've been
Well,
pushed to the worst corner, right? That's what I'm looking at. I'm like, darn,
Saul was
Mikhail.
the first king. Saul was the first king. So it wasn't like it wasn't like that she was raised, in this beautiful palace with all of these people, and he was the first king. So I'm not thinking it was anything like what we think of Solomon, but it was Saul being the first king. I'm sure that she was raised in a Hebrew household. I know that Samuel and Saul were very close for a very long time. So she probably knew Samuel. She probably had a lot of God knowledge or learning about her role as a Hebrew wife or daughter. So I'm sure she had those things. It's not like she was Jezebel, who had no knowledge of God. Um,
Yeah, I appreciate
still-
all of that. Brenda, I think you have to also remember, as Maureen's saying, we don't know the end of her story.
True.
And I say that often, just because the story ends right here on paper, that her life didn't end here. We don't know where it went, and I love the fact that you brought up it's not fair, because I think fairness is part of her lesson. That's part of her legacy. When I mentioned earlier that Saul, when he got filled with the spirit prophesied and got naked, and he was not disfellowshipped. I was about to say disfellowshipped. he was pushed, he was taken off the throne because of his action. Meanwhile, David's doing basically the same thing, and he's been praised. So a lot of her life, she's trying to figure out, wait a minute, well, you did this with my dad. My dad got, so she had to learn fairness, I think, was part of her life lesson. What if things don't look fair? What if things don't look the same and they don't seem equal? Will you still trust me, Michal? So that her lesson is different from David's lesson, which is different, for every person on the screen. Our lessons are different. But I think fairness is part of hers, because the bitterness of heart that we see comes out of, this isn't fair.
Right.
My dad has been criticized, and my dad is crazy, and he's doing the same thing that David's doing, and everybody thinks he's a hero. It's not fair. Or I loved this man didn't love me back. It's not fair. And that, I think, is part of the reason she's there. What do we do when life isn't fair? Do we build up a callus around our hearts so that we despise God? God, I despise you, that you would allow all of this unfairness to happen in my life. So just some food for thought, something to wrestle with.
Yes.
It's been a wrestling match on
Gonna
this
be
one.
wrestling. It's good.
Christy, please forgive me for challenging you. There was no ill will. I was just in my in that zone. So
that is the beauty of this group.
Yes.
we love you, Brenda. I love it. I love you, Brenda. I love it.